Hello, everyone, and welcome, a very warm welcome. Um, Thank you for joining as well. It's a busy, new year, so we're really excited to have you guys joining today. Um, let's kick off today with some community chat engagement. For this topic, I'd love to get going and start brainstorming what you guys are wanting to learn from this topic, whether it's something specific or it's just general knowledge, put in the chat what you're, hoping to learn. And with that, as you guys are popping in the chat, writing down, I wanted to extend a warm welcome um, to you guys joining the Massage Magazine Insurance Plus webinar series that we've coined In Session. My name is Lizzie, and I'm actually filling in for Shannon and Matt today. Both have felt ill right now or fell ill. So a resounding stay healthy out there, folks. I'm actually the associate director of Massage Magazine Insurance Plus, in addition to overseeing some of our sister brands, which I won't get into today. But for those who are not familiar with Massage Magazine Insurance Plus, first, I want to make sure everyone can chat. There it is. Okay, now you can write in your messages. Um, For those who are not familiar with Massage Magazine Insurance Plus, also known as MIP or MMIP for short, we are an all-inclusive liability insurance provider for massage therapists, bodywork professionals, Reiki professionals, or Reiki practitioners, and so many more based in the US. And our primary mission is to support you all with quality coverage in addition to education and just community support. And that's why we started the webinar series. So just a quick reminder before we get into today's topic, it is about 1 hour long and it is being recorded. The recording will be sent out to you all between 24 to 48 hours via email. So just keep an eye off on that if you do have to leave early. And we encourage questions. So utilize the chat. There's a question feature as well. We'll be monitoring those and we'll leave around 10 to 15 minutes at the end to get to those. With that, I wanted to say a warm welcome to our guest hosts today, Patty Glenn and Grant Minix. I'll give you guys a brief glimpse into their experience. I'm sure they'll have much more to tell. But let's start with Patty Glenn. She brings over 30 years of leadership and regulatory experience to her role as Director of Education and Professional Mobility for the Federation of State Massage Therapy Boards. She is a former executive director of the Oregon Board of Massage Therapists and is also a seasoned massage therapist, educator, and former clinic owner, giving her a uniquely comprehensive perspective on the profession. Her dedication to advancing education and professional standards, combined with the innovative and collaborative approach, has made her a standout leader and a trusted voice in this field. Thank you, Patty, for being here. And our second guest host today is Grant Minix. He is a policy analyst at the Council of State Governments, working specifically in the National Center for Interstate Compacts. Grant works to develop and provide enactment assistance for professional licensure compacts. He additionally manages the National Center for Interstate Compacts database, which is the most comprehensive database of interstate compacts available. Prior to CSG, Grant worked for the Kentucky Office of the Attorney General, the Kentucky Legislative Research Commission, and in government affairs at Eastern Kentucky University. Grant has earned his Master of Public Administration as well as a BA in Political Science from both Eastern Kentucky University. That is a mouthful, a wonderful experience, and we're so lucky to have them both here today. Before I'm passing it over to them, I just want to look at the chat and see if we can kind of start thinking. We have someone looking for general background information. Is there an estimated timeline? So we'll probably get into that some more. Just really excited about industry updates. So with that, let's pass it over to Patty and Grant. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you, Lizzie. I guess I'll just go ahead and get started.
Yeah, let's get into it.
We're really grateful that you took the time to be here today. This is a really important topic for both Grant and I believe also for the massage profession. But we know your time is valuable, especially for the lunch hour for some of you. And so we appreciate again you being here today. So I want to start by just telling a little bit more about a quick overview of what FSMTB is, and then I'll let Grant talk about the Council of State Governments and a little bit about what their role is. And then Grant's going to kick it off by going into interstate compacts, and then we'll move more into profession specific as we move through this. Please, please, please put your comments in the chat as we go along. We really want to try and move through this as succinctly and quickly as possible so that we can leave as much time at the end to answer those questions. So again, please make sure to make a note or stick them in the chat when you think about them. And there's no dumb questions, so ask anything you want to ask, and we'll do our best to address it. There'll also be contact information at the end for both Grant and I. So if something that you want to ask, you don't feel comfortable asking for some reason, again, please feel free to utilize that and reach out to either one of us. So I want to just share really quickly, my role as the Director of Education and Professional Mobility with the Federation of State Massage Therapy Boards is focused on two key areas. Obviously, the education side, and we currently have a education task force working on looking at the entry-level analysis project and assessing how we can more efficiently and effectively address education and massage therapy. The other major portion of my role is the professional mobility piece. And that has been a key charge of the Federation of State Massage Therapy Boards since the inception in 2005. The Federation of State Massage Therapy Boards is made up of the regulatory community. So it is not an association for therapists or educators, but rather an organization that ties regulation together with the goal of helping to streamline and provide more efficiency and regulation and provide resources to our state boards. The mission specifically is to support our member boards in their work to ensure that the practice of massage therapy is provided to the public safely and competently. So as you're going to hear when Grant speaks about the process here shortly, FSMTB was interested in applying for the grant and getting involved in this process because we believe that a multi-state license is a major asset in both public safety and addressing public safety and competency in the profession, and to streamline the efficiencies of regulation and make it easier for the public to access their massage licenses in a multitude or multiple states. So that's a little bit about FSMTB and why we chose to get involved in this mission. And I'll let Grant take over and talk about CSG.
Thanks, Patty. My name is Grant Mannix, as Lizzie introduced, I'm a policy analyst with the Council of State Governments. If you haven't heard of us before, the Council of State Governments is the nation's leading organization that works with public officials in all three branches of state government to find mutually shared issues and collaborate with those public officials to find solutions to those mutual issues. We're a region-based organization headquartered in Lexington, Kentucky, with an office in D.C. and regional offices in New York, Chicago, Atlanta, and Sacramento. So we work really on the ground with a lot of public officials to see common issues amongst states and work to find solutions. On the next slide, I'll get into one of my specific focus at the Council of State Governments within the National Center for Interstate Compacts. The National Center for Interstate Compacts is the nation's only team of professionals working to facilitate and develop interstate compacts in the United States. There's over 270 interstate compacts in the U.S. With some of those are national compacts, some of those are regional compacts, even agreements and compacts between 2 or 3 states. They go for a wide range of issues, including shared natural resources, developing shared parks and recreation activities, managing adoptions between states. And one big theme within interstate compacts is through licensing. And licensure reciprocity. You see a good example of probably one of the most well-known interstate compacts, which a lot of you probably have in your wallet, is the driver's license. The driver's license is actually the result of an interstate compact And requirements of a compact is a legal, legislatively enacted contract between two or more states that really work to bring cooperation amongst the states to address shared problems. One of those is the need for driver's license reciprocity, how we manage driver's licensing between states. And on the next slide, we'll go into our focus, which has been at top of mind at the National Center for Interstate Compacts, is occupational licensing. We actually took the idea of the driver's license, which was developed in the 70s, and thought, could we take this same idea with the driver's license that allows individuals to drive between states and still abide by the laws of the state they're driving in, and say, could we apply this to occupational licensing? And so in 2016, the Nurse Licensure Compact was the first licensure compact developed, and this brought about this idea for numerous professions that they saw the benefit of facilitating multi-state practice, maintaining and improving public health and safety, and preserving state authority over professional licensing. And since that work with the Nurse Licensure Compact, the compacts have been very popular and successful. 52 states and territories have adopted at least one of these compacts, with 42 adopting at least 3, 37 adopting at least 6, and numerous have adopted over 10. We have developed compacts which have resulted in over 372 pieces of compact legislation which have been enacted since 2016, and currently 18 professions have active interstate compacts for occupational licensing, one of which for massage therapy. So the next slide, we'll get into exactly the impetus behind this project specifically we're working on, and how we got here with the Interstate Massage Compact. So I mentioned the Nurse Licensure Compact and that promulgating more licensure compacts, those specifically within the healthcare profession. We joined in agreements with federal entities like HHS and the Department of Labor, as well as organizations and associations such as the Federation for State Medical Boards, or the National Council of State Boards of Nursing, the American Occupational Therapy Association, Federation of State Boards of Physical Therapy, to develop licensure compacts for those specific professions. And really those caught on quickly amongst the states and got attention at the national level. And one specific community which saw great benefits from these licensure compacts and licensure reciprocity, increased mobility, were military families and military spouses. And that's why the Department of Defense joined in with us at CSG in a cooperative agreement in 2019 to develop 10 licensure compacts for 10 different professions. We through this process, we set up a competitive application process where groups like the Federation of State Massage Therapy Boards were eligible to apply for technical assistance to develop licensure compacts. FSMTB applied in late 2020, early 2021, and were selected to receive that technical assistance. And the first step of that process was putting together a technical assistance group, which is made up of a variety of industry stakeholders. And that group was convened to provide input and set recommendations for a bit smaller, more focused document team, which created an initial draft based on our experiences from previous compacts and the recommendations from the technical assistance group and a great knowledge of the profession that group had. And we took that initial draft, brought that out to the public, received a lot of public feedback on that, took that feedback back, and then our working groups took that feedback, made a few edits, and resulted in the final model legislation that is currently out for enactment now. One big part of that process we had with the working groups, I'll get into on the next slide, with the multi-state license model. So that group worked to, we have a number of different models that really how licensure is facilitated in the compact and between the states. And those working groups determined that the best model for the massage therapy profession was the multi-state license model. So, and exactly how that works, it's more akin to both the nursing compact, which was one of the first compacts, other ones like the cosmetology compact and the social work compact. And these were all modeled very closely akin to the driver license model, right? So you have one license, which allows you to practice in multiple states at once. So exactly how this works for the massage profession is an LMT is licensed in their home state that's a member of the compact, and in turn they apply to the commission, having their license. This commission maintains a data system, a shared data system amongst the states where they can quickly access the information that verifies an individual's eligibility to receive a multi-state license based on the requirements in the compact, which we're going to get into a little bit later. That commission issues through the home state a multi-state license, which is that strong comparison to the driver's license. And every state that enacts the compact, they in turn agree to allowing an individual with a multi-state license to come into their state and practice. A huge key aspect of this is that the LMT does have to maintain their home state license, which is kind of that key to the multi-state license. But in turn, by maintaining that license, the home state license and the multi-state license, they can now practice in any compact member state through that license. And with that, I'll turn it over to Patty for our next slide.
Thank you so much, Grant. It's always such a pleasure to work with you. So why? At this point, why? You heard Grant talk about the process. You heard why it's important to the Department of Defense. You've heard a little bit about why compacts as a whole are important to this country. And I know Grant talked about the fact there's a variety of different compacts. I was fortunate to attend Council of State Governments conference in early December. And as I sat back and listened, we don't navigate this life without touching a compact somewhere, whether it's driving across bridges between states or the water use, how water is going to be used. Let's use an example of the Columbia River between Washington and Oregon. So compacts, are an important part of our life. We just don't necessarily see them. This one is going to be much more visible to us as therapists and beneficial as well to both the professional and the regulatory community. So let's talk about that really quickly. The benefits to massage therapists and the profession at large include things like that ability that Grant was talking about on increased mobility. We knew there was a need, but as we've continued to work this last couple of years through this process, I continue to hear more stories of need and learn more ways that the profession benefits from having something like this available to them. So following tourism and work might not seem like something that you would realize that there's a need for if you are a sole practitioner and have been working in your clinic or your private practice for a number of years and are not necessarily as aware of what's happening within the spa or even the franchise environment. But over the last number of years, we've lost a substantial amount of our workforce due to COVID and other things. And also we had some schools shut down back about a decade ago that also slowed down entry into the field. And so as a result, we've had this increasing number of need in the profession for massage therapists within the spa industry and also the franchise industry, and yet a decrease in individuals either entering or staying in the workforce. And so there's a significant need. The spa industry, massage therapy makes up 74% of their gross revenue, according to a report that I had seen at iSpa last spring. And so you can only imagine what having a deficit of massage therapists does in that environment. So huge opportunities there to have a creative, maybe different career than what you envisioned coming in. The other stories that we hear on a regular basis are about supporting families' needs. I actually ran into a therapist in Washington State who had a licensed in Washington and active practice and had a daughter go on early bed rest in Florida and really needed mom there. And unfortunately, mom's need to work and have gainful employment had to take precedent over her ability to go support her daughter in Florida. And so this is a way that we can help mitigate some of those challenges. It's not going to fix all of them. And obviously it takes time to stand up the entire compact, but over time, more and more states will be available to those individuals holding multi-state licenses. The other story we hear on a regular basis is individuals who are retiring, but aren't where they thought they would be financially, or desire to retire, or change their lifestyle. And they want to be able to travel more and have flexibility, but still maintain an income. And again, with the needs in the profession and what I hear from employers on a regular basis, there are a lot of opportunities out there for therapists to come in and work for 3 months or 6 months in a spa or clinic environment where they would come in, do the work, be employed, and then at the end of their contract or time period, move on. So another huge opportunity there as well. Supporting temporary relocation is kind of an unintended benefit that came up this year in a few different circumstances. The biggest one we saw with the hurricanes coming through, and especially the displacement of individuals in the Western North Carolinas and that area, was the ability to temporarily relocate and go right back to work in the event of a natural disaster, or in situations such as domestic violence. Because we have the multi-state license model, individuals are not having to necessarily report their location or their place of work. They do not have to report their location or place of work in the states that they're working, unless there's some other stipulation in that state that requires them to do so. And so it allows them a little bit of a buffer, but even more important, again, the ability to very quickly get back to work, or to get to work and be able to maintain an income and therefore support for their personal and family needs. Streamlined processes with decreased administration and financial burden. We'll see this when we talk about the survey coming up shortly, but it definitely is an added benefit for the therapist to have less paperwork and to pay less in licensing fees than to hold multiple licenses. Businesses are accessing quality therapists to serve their community and improve their bottom line. And schools have the opportunity to address an emerging mobile workforce more effectively, because state lines are no longer going to be a barrier to whether or not that education would be accepted in another state. Whoops, sorry, just move forward here. And then the benefits to the state and regulatory community are that it enhances the cooperation among the state boards, helps to reduce the administrative burden for them as well, and the having to process or track down or gather information for out-of-state license applicants. It secures an agreement on a uniform standard. It creates a shared data system that Grant mentioned earlier called the Massage Therapy Licensing Database, or MATILDA. And we'll talk about that again a little bit later in the presentation, but that allows the regulatory community to be able to access the information necessary and also holds the space for the multi-state license. It expands our ability to protect public health and safety. And it also increases access to quality therapists, like we talked about, that it helps address the shortages and increases revenue for the states. And again, streamlines processes, as Grant mentioned, for military spouses and their family members, as well as the massage community at large. Okay, so this is one of the areas where we see a lot of confusion in the profession, and that is, okay, you've talked about this driver's license for massage, or this license that would allow me to be mobile in massage, but does my state qualify, or do I qualify? And so I want to talk about that, and I want to point out the fact that there are two distinctly separate sets of requirements, one for the state and one for the licensee. So on the state's requirements, the state must license and regulate massage therapy. So a state like the one I live in, Kansas, who doesn't currently have state licensure, I would not be eligible my state would not be eligible to join the compact, because there's no mechanism to do so. And I, as a licensed therapist or a therapist in the state of Kansas, would not be able to obtain access to the multi-state license at this time. Hopefully that will change in the future. The state must require that licensees satisfy educational requirements prior to being licensed. It does not specify on the state side the number of hours required. So whether your state has 500 hours or 1,000 hours, you would qualify, the state would qualify under this requirement. They must require that licensees within the state take and pass the national licensing exam, which is currently the NBLEX. That just simply means that the state must accept the NBLEX. It does not mean that you have to have taken that. We'll talk about that on the the licensee side in a moment. The state also has to have a system in place to be able to conduct and process the background check requirement for the multi-state license. Again, this background check requirement is specific to the multi-state license. It does not mean that if you're licensed in a state that doesn't currently background check, that you would have to then background check if you weren't interested in obtaining a multi-state license. This is a requirement for licensees, but the state has to have a mechanism in place to be able to facilitate that. It must have a continued competence requirement. So a few of our states, like Ohio, who has enacted the compact, but doesn't yet currently have a requirement for continued competence. In order to fully stand up and participate in multi-state licensing, Ohio will need to enact some form of a continued competence requirement. Again, there is no requirement in the legislation on how many hours or how the state chooses to do so, but there must be a continuing competence component as a requirement for renewal of licensure. And as we talked about earlier, they also will have to participate in the massage therapy licensing database, which again is a secure database shared between the regulatory community that houses the information pertinent to the multi-state license. Now let's talk about you, because I'm guessing the majority of the people on the webinar today are actually therapists. And so I wanted to make sure we kind of set aside misinformation, because I hear people say, oh, my state only has 500 hours, not 625, so we don't qualify. Well, that's not true. The state does qualify, and let's find out how you will as a therapist. So as a massage therapist, you need to hold an active, unencumbered license in your home state. And the state has to be a member of the compact in order for you to get a multi-state license. So grant, we didn't talk about unencumbered earlier, but unencumbered refers to things like a probation or suspension of license, an action against the license itself. If you had some sort of a peer supervision requirement, something that encumbers the license. It does not mean that you couldn't have had a minor violation for something like you made a mistake and didn't realize you were supposed to put your license number on your advertising, and the state sanctioned you for failing to post your license number, and you had to pay some sort of a fee. It's kind of like getting a traffic ticket versus getting your driver's license suspended, if that makes sense. So hopefully that helps explain what that unencumbered word means when we're talking about it in this instance. So you must have an active and unencumbered license in your home state that is a member of the compact. You have to have completed at least 625 clock hours of massage therapy. That can, or we expect it will be, according to the intentions of the technical advisory group and all of the parties involved, a combination of your core education and continuing education to get to that 625. So if you graduated from a 550-hour program or a 500-hour, even a 300-hour program, because you've been in the field as long as some of us have, you can still apply for and qualify, or will still be able to apply for and qualify for a multi-state license through education. You'll just need to, once the rules are fully enacted, pull that documentation together and submit it for verification. You must have passed an accepted national licensing exam. So again, based on the conversations with the TAG technical assistance group and in the development process, it is expected that both the MBLEX and the licensing exams administered by the National Certification Board for Therapeutic Massage and Bodywork will be accepted. That will be addressed through the rules making process. However, the board certification exams or exams that were not done for licensing purposes would not qualify or count in this situation. The state exams that are out there do not qualify as a national licensing exam, but we do anticipate that the commission will look at whether or not there's an ability to establish substantial equivalence there or not as they work through the rules making process. Again, all of those decisions will be done by the Compact Commission once it stood up. To stand up the Compact Commission, we need 7 states to enact this legislation. You'll see when we get to a slide here in a moment, we currently have 2, and there are 2 states that have active legislation this session, Montana and Virginia. And again, we're right at the start of session, so we hope we'll see several more come on board here soon. And then once those 7 states have adopted or enacted that legislation, those states will become the commission and they will begin working on the rules drafting process. As they work through that rules process, there will be opportunities again for public comment. And all of the feedback that I've been receiving through this process, I have been also setting aside in a stack that's quite large now for the commission to consider on the various scenarios or questions that you've asked as a community, which is why this interaction is so important to the development process as well. Okay, that was a lot, so hopefully I didn't confuse things more. As we talked about a moment ago, you have to pass a background check. The background check requirements are spelled out very specifically in the model language. So you can look at that section and see exactly what would potentially restrict you from being able to hold a multi-state license. And then you have to pay the required fees. So two things I want to talk about here. One, this is an additional pathway for licensure. It does not take the place of the current system. So let's just say that you live on the Washington-Oregon border and you desire to work in those two states, but only those two states. You can still choose to license in Washington and license in Oregon. And if that's a more efficient or effective way for you to manage that, that's absolutely, that will not change. That will maintain you will maintain the right to access licensing that way. If both states joined the compact, you would have another option, and that would be to apply for and obtain your multi-state license through your home state. So if you lived in Washington, it would be through Washington state. And then that multi-state license would allow you to practice in Washington and Oregon. The benefit to you would be that you would not have to do the licensing paperwork or turn in CEs for both states. You'd only have to do that for your home state and then pay your requisite fees there and be able to access both states. The last part on the paid all required fees related to the application, we don't know yet, because I know that question's buzzing. What's it going to cost? We do not know yet, but what we know from all of the other professions who've come before is that it's not as cheap as just one other state. It might be a little bit more expensive, but it's not as much typically as holding 2 additional licenses. So again, this is a business and life decision for those of you who are interested in applying for it as to how you're going to use it and whether it makes the most sense to have that tool available for you. But it definitely does streamline the process, and it also is cheaper than holding typically more than 1 additional license. Okay, hopefully that didn't also confuse things. So the other question that comes up occasionally, we're just going to touch very briefly on, is the discipline side of things. So again, you have to have an unencumbered home state license. So if you are disciplined in your home state and that creates an encumberment on your license, then that would result in the commission also nullifying your multi-state license. So being able or adhering to the state laws and rules and regulations when you're a multi-state license holder is even more emphasized, I would say, by those individuals that I've talked to in other professions who hold multi-state or like products in their profession, that the importance of maintaining that right to have a multi-state license makes them even more attentive to the rules and regulations in their state. But in the event that something happens and you are disciplined and your license becomes encumbered, then your multi-state license would also be invalid. Should you have something happen in a remote state, then the remote state would do that investigation. They would take action, report it into the database, and your home state would be informed through that process. And then the home state, again, would take an action against your home license, which would result in the commission also nullifying your multi-state license. Again, if it's a simple fine and it doesn't create an encumbrance on the home state license, then it would not affect your, we don't anticipate it would affect your multi-state license either. But those are, again, some of the nuances we'll address through rule, and then we'll just see how things go as we move forward with this. But it's a pretty straightforward and seamless process. Some of the states have asked, well, is this going to cost us more in investigation? And some of the licensees have said, I don't think it's fair that we have to pay for a multi-state license or that we have to pay for increased discipline. Having spoken to a number of different compact representatives for other professions and listened to several presentations, it's just not how this plays out when it's in practice. That again, the individuals who utilize these licenses are genuinely following the letter of the law to make sure that they have the right to practice and they can maintain that right to practice because it's an important right that they've earned. And so we don't typically, or they don't typically see any increase. Doesn't mean there won't be one or two here and there, but not typically an increase. And then for licensees who don't wish to obtain a multi-state license, the cost of multi-state licensure is borne by the multi-state license holders, not by the rest of the LMT community in that state. Okay. Just really quickly to talk about this database, because I think in this day and age, we're all cautious and conscientious about where our data is or being stored. This is a highly secure database that is shared between the regulatory community for the purpose of regulation. And this was a desire and a dream of the regulatory community when FSMTB was founded in 2005 to help facilitate and streamline and make licensing more efficient and effective. Because as many of you know, and you'll see in our survey results, being able to provide education information or cross all the T's and dot all the I's that are necessary for each state's license can become quite challenging. And sometimes the regulations that you were required to, the process and procedures you're required to adhere to in your home state, are not in alignment with the state that maybe you're moving to or that you desire to practice in. So this database is intended to bring in your licensing and application details, along with your state information, and in this case, any continuing education coursework that comes through the REACH or CE registry program that's administered by the states. And that creates a complete therapist profile in the system. So because we have outside other entities, it will never contain all of your continuing education, which would certainly make streamlining education easier, or we don't anticipate it would include all of it. It could in the future. But anyway, what information is accessible would be in there. Okay. So where are we right now for this legislative session? Because that's why we're here. The title of this was updates, and it's January and legislative sessions are kicking off and our legislators are digging down and getting the work done. So this map shows you just a little bit of additional information, and it will change every day. The two dark blue states you'll see are the two states that currently have enacted legislation for the Massage Compact. The two green states, as I mentioned earlier, Montana and Virginia, both have pending bills. And I'll show you how you can access more information about this when we get to that portion of the website in a moment. And then the states that are currently in dark blue, or sorry, that middle blue color, are states where there is heightened legislative activity. So there are groups working on getting bill sponsors, or there already is a bill sponsor, but we haven't seen bills introduced yet. And the states that are light blue are where there's interest, but it hasn't quite solidified as for the 2025 session. So it could be 2026, we'll see. But as I'm sure Grant would attest to as well, this landscape changes every day. Bills pop up that you didn't even know were in the works because it wasn't communicated directly with us. I would say for any of you who are in the light blue or dark blue states that are interested in getting more involved, reach out. For any of you in the gray states, if you're really interested in getting more involved, please reach out, and I'll show you how you can do that here in just a moment. We want to support you. My job and Grant's job in this process is to educate and advocate on your behalf and on behalf of this compact. But we are not lobbyists. It is not our job to beat down the doors in the state capitol and make sure that the legislators get this introduced. This has to come from the profession. And so you're a key component to having this multi-state license and stood up and realized by our profession. So let's talk quickly about the resources available to you. On massagecompact.org, you'll see, let me see if, Grant, I'm going to ask a quick technical question. Can you see my pointer on the screen right now or no?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So on our website, you'll notice that there's a bar across the top when you're there that directs you to the various pages. This is our home page, and you'll see this lovely little arrow at the bottom. That directs you this way, where you'll find the model legislation, as well as some frequently asked questions. And down towards the bottom, you'll get our links for social media as well. These are some additional pages that you'll find on the website. The Take Action page here, we're going to dive into in a lot more detail, so I'm going to skip that for a moment. The Compact Map page here is the one that is active, and if you hover over states like I did earlier in Virginia when I took this screenshot, you'll see that a box pops up and it gives you a link directly to that House bill. So you can see what's happening at any time. Now, in addition to current legislation, like we see in Montana and Virginia, if you hover over other states like Washington, or I'm laughing because I'm having to figure out where Nebraska is in my brain right now, you will see that there was, or Georgia or Alabama. If the state name pops up, there was previously legislation there that did not make it through the session for one reason or another in either 23 or 24. So if you hover over a state where there's been no legislation, the name of the state doesn't even pop up. Now, you'll have to know your geography or what state you live in and not try and find Nebraska like I just did. Okay. The other page that's very important, especially for those of you interested in getting more involved, is this toolkit page. And this is what you'll see on the toolkit page. And it includes the model legislation that we just talked about, and fact sheet, a section by section review. This is very handy if you're talking to a legislator about this, for you to have more information or understanding. It's also helpful for them. There is a generic letter of support that we'll talk about as well. The frequently asked questions, but in a downloadable format. A document that's designed to explain why 625 was the hours that was agreed upon or decided on by TAG and the document team, as well as the profession in this process, and then the benefits to an interstate massage compact. So there's actually a few other documents on that page as well. So really a great list of resources and information for you that you can share through social media, through your friends, colleagues, place of business, or in working and dealing with legislators or members of the community. Okay, so let's talk about this Take Action page. We just started in December working with a group called Voter Voice, which is through a group called Fiscal Note, which tracks legislation. And they are experts in what they do. And Voter Voice was developed and intended to give voters a voice in the legislative process. And so we are using this tool in order to make things as efficient and effective and easy for you as licensees to get involved as possible. One of the most important tools for me to understand what the profession wants or needs is this survey tool that you'll see with a link both at the top and also right here. So you can click either on the banner or on the survey link here in order to take that survey. And the QR code in the upper right-hand corner takes you directly to that page on the website. Also on this page, you'll see there's a link where you can share your story. It's just a very simple couple of text boxes for you to tell us why it's important to you. When we talk about social media in a moment, I'll share with you that that's where a lot of our stories have come from, and it's been very beneficial in helping the profession understand. And then the last part is this letter of support that we'll again talk about. So we are getting short on time. We have about 15 minutes left, and I want to make sure we get to your questions. So I'm going to run through these survey results quickly, but I just wanted to show you how things are coming in so far. So this is obviously, here is the therapist or the breakdown of who's responded to the survey. And this just gives you a heat map, in this case, a cool map, on where the highest responses are coming from at this point in time. So if your state is low, help get the word out on this survey so we can get that information to help educate and inform both us and the profession and the legislative community. This is how the responses are coming in as far as different associations, professional associations or groups. So ABMP, AMTA has come in with the highest number of responses so far. NCBTMB board certified individuals, a pretty good number there. Massage Magazine Insurance Plus, since we're here, look at you guys. That's pretty amazing, especially considering that the organization is newer on the landscape than AMTA and ABMP are. But again, just helps to see how things are going. These are the things that are important here. Does the profession want or need this? And hands down, they have said, yes, we want to practice in other states. Here's also an interesting statistic when you put them side by side. In spite of the respondents stating heavily, yes, they want to be able to practice in other states, the reality is the majority don't hold any other state licenses. Few hold one, and even less two, and a few hold three. Nobody actually, this is a zero line, nobody holds 4 or 5 or more additional licenses currently in the survey respondents. So if you do, we want to hear from you because your voice matters. But you'll see the disparity. Large number of people that want to, large number of responses that don't hold them. And so why is that? Well, in this case, the licensing or regulatory requirements appear to be making that challenging. So yes, no, and then not applicable. So if nobody's ever tried, then they would show up here in the not applicable. And you can see some of those challenges, the additional cost, the time-consuming application process, differences in the education or testing requirements, delays in being able to get that licensing approval. Sometimes that comes from the state you're applying to. Sometimes it comes from getting your current license validated or verified by your state. And then this group, probably our same not applicable, haven't yet tried to work across state lines. The other thing I found interesting, just wanted to share with you today because data is fascinating to me. I was expecting therapists to respond to this who were newer in the profession because they came into that emerging mobile profession. They came into a space where they see mobility as a possibility, or it's talked about more, because those of us who have been in the profession for decades didn't have all these franchises and as many spas and opportunities. And we just were more static as a profession, or as a country, but as a population. We tended to stay put. People worked in their jobs for a long time. Now we have a much more mobile community. And I thought that we would see high numbers here, but yet look at this. Our largest number of individuals responding to this survey have been in the profession for more than 20 years. But in spite of what we saw a moment ago, where most of the people did not hold another multi-state license, the majority of people responding to this survey said they saw themselves getting a multi-state license as soon as it was available. So it's clearly evident that there's a huge desire and need, and that some of the barriers that this reduces are what are currently preventing or stopping people from being able to work across state lines today. Consistent with some of the benefits we talked about earlier, hands down, everybody's responding heavily to the benefits on this, but enabling you to work across state lines without additional licenses opens up the opportunity for new careers, simplifies compliance with state regulations. Okay, so in case you haven't taken the survey, I'm giving you another shot. There's the QR code. And again, you can go to our massagecompact.org to the Take Action page and take this survey, please. The information in that survey comes to me. The aggregate information, like you just saw, we will make available, but not your personal information. And that's important because this tool requires you to give a little bit more information than maybe most people would be comfortable with, but there's a reason. So let's talk about that. When you go into the survey, this is what the start of it looks like. When you get to the end, it says enter your information. Remember I said this is a tool, Voter Voice is a tool that makes things streamlined and simple and efficient for you to get more involved, should you decide to. It does require that your name, email, and last name are provided, and you will get a thank you email responding. It also does require that you provide your home information. Please use your home address. We will not share, sell, or use this data. It is proprietary to us. And if you choose to, you can unclick these boxes that say, yes, send me updates regarding the compact, or don't remember me. If you choose to leave it there so that it does remember you, there's a really huge benefit to this information. And that is, let me back up one thing. One of the questions on the survey asks about your level or interest in being involved. And if you check that you're interested in being involved, when you provide this information, it allows me a mechanism to get resources to you or to notify you in the way that you've desired to be notified. Without that information, obviously, it would just stop here. So another huge reason that that's there. This is the other page that we looked at right here, where it says send a message of support to your legislators. There's a couple ways you can do that. One, whoops, I went way back. Oh, sorry, I'm going the wrong direction. This is what happens when you're on a PowerPoint. Sorry about that. All right. So this letter that you see over here that says send a letter of support, this information here on the page is your kind of an explanation to you on why it matters. But this section in this slightly darker box is an actual letter itself. And you'll see I've put in my information. I didn't want like everybody on my door. So this is my work office, not my personal. So these aren't actually my senators or representatives. But you'll see here in the center of the screen that by populating that information, it populates automatically who your current senator and representative are at the state level. So it knows exactly who to send this letter to. You'll see here it says that you can edit this. We've drafted one for you, but you can edit it in any way, shape, or form that you desire to do so. And then the body of the email is right here. And this is that data expanded, which you can just drag this box to see. This is the draft letter that was created for you to go to your senators and representatives, but you can go in and amend it, tell your story. If you know them personally, add a little note, whatever that looks like. I chose just to show you that there is an option to receive text alerts. You can check that box and put in your phone number if you'd like to, or you don't have to. And again, this information is critical here because that's how we get to this right there to help you. Now, if you're opposed to all this, but you still want to get involved, it's okay. There's still a way. We just have to be old school about it. So on the resource tab or the toolkit tab, remember I told you there's a lot of great information. One of those is this letter of support template. You have to click on it and download. And just because I know not everybody has the same level of technical skills, when you do download it, you'll either go here on your browser and click this button to open that download, or to your download file on your computer. And that will pop open a Word document that looks like this. You may or may not have to click an enable editing button to open it, but then you can go in and fill in this information. You will need to look up your own senator and representative and then attach it as an email or embed it in an email to your senators and representatives. So you can see how it streamlines and makes the process a lot easier to use the voter voice system, but certainly this is a tool that's available to you as well. Okay, I'm going to leave this slide up, I think. Well, it'll be on the recording as well, and you can also get it from us if you need to. But we do have 3 official pages for the impact that are building resources, one on Instagram, one on Facebook, and a YouTube channel. Currently, the YouTube channel just has recordings like this, so you can find them all in one location. But please come like and follow these pages. I will be using these, especially Facebook, as a way to let you know what's happening in your state or in a particular state and to keep you abreast of that. And then there's also a page I'm going to share with you because I think it's very impactful, and that is a group of therapists put together a supporters of impact page. This is not an official page of the compact, but it has a lot of really great stories, and it's a way to connect with a community that is interested in getting this work done. So I wanted to also make sure we shared that with you. And on that note, we're going to go to Q&A. So I'm going to leave up the social media, and Lizzie, I'll turn it back over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Patty and Grant.
Thank you.
Really, really great information. So thank you for outlining everything. Just so everyone knows, all of these links, all of these pieces of information that you might want to look into later will be in the email that is sent with the recording. So easy access there as well. Just as we might be over a few minutes. If you need to jump, totally okay, but there's some really great questions, so I want to get to them. All right. So we kind of answered this, but I don't know if I want to. We'll ask it. So the question is, what happens when the state does not require a license? I know we kind of touched on that. Do we want to jump into that a little bit more or skip to the next one?
Maybe just a 2-second Reader's Digest. I would say if your state doesn't currently require licensure, it needs to. For a variety of reasons. And I think there's a benefit to that, especially with some of the challenges we have in our profession today. And so I would reach out to your local, to your chapter of AMTA or to ABMP and see if there's active legislation happening in your state. There's been a lot of discussion about Practice Act legislation in a number of the unlicensed states in 2025, but I don't have the updates on where that is.
Thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
As far as the compact goes, echoing, what Patty says about the importance of licensure in your state. But as far as, for the compact, the state would need to have licensure in effect to any state can enact any piece of legislation. So it could certainly be enacted. But to participate in the compact, both issue a license and then take in practitioners with a license, you'd have to have licensure in the state. So.
Okay, and I just to piggyback on that one more time, because I think Shane is the one that asked that question. And Shane, I'm in Kansas too. So reach out because I do know that there is potential legislation being introduced again this year, and I'd love to chat with you more. Okay, go ahead, Lizzie, sorry.
Yeah, so just kind of speaking about timelines, new states, we're in session right now. What is the realistic or estimated timeline on when more states will become involved? What does that look like?
Grant, I'm going to let you take it from here, but assuming that we get the remaining 7 states this legislative session, which is the goal and desire, Grant, what does that process look like from that point forward?
So once the compact's enacted in 7 states, that activates what's called we mentioned it earlier, the Compact Commission. That group is a group of regulatory leaders from your state licensing agency, one representative from each state that they meet and will start to work to put the compact in operational, to operationalize the compact. That's a big part of that's setting up the data system, which, there's already some potential avenues for that now. So that could definitely expedite the process. We anticipate by the time that happens, a 1 to 2 years process between the time that 7th state enacts it and when multi-state licenses can be issued, probably closer to 1 year than 2.
Mhm.
So that's
Good things
consistent
take
with the
time.
estimate that I've been using, which is hopefully by the end of 2026. So, and remember, more states can keep coming on while the commission's
Yeah.
doing their work. So,
And that's why it's so important for each state, each community to get involved, just continue that conversation. I have a question about the testing element. So will a licensed massage therapist who has been practicing for 30 years plus, as well as instructing, who has just a state license, have to take a national exam, or would they be grandfathered in?
so there's no grandfathering provision. So at this point, the answer would be yes. And I was talking to a couple of colleagues of mine who have been in as long as I have as well. And a couple have taken the MBLEX recently because they wanted it for or needed it for obtaining licensure in another state, and said that it wasn't nearly as daunting as they thought. They are prepared as a practicing therapist to be able to take the MBLEX if it's necessary to do so. So I would say that's a multifaceted response. Yes, it's possible that qualified people who've been in the profession for years may not qualify for the multi-state license because of the requirements there. However, like I mentioned, there's nothing that prevents those therapists from obtaining traditional licensure should they decide they don't want to take the MBLEX. Although to get a license in many of the other states, they would still also have to have a national licensing exam to qualify for licensure. So it's kind of a mixed bag. So I would say just take your MBLEX and reinforce what you know, and then you're ready when it comes online.
Next question. At this time, would the compact be a one-time registration or renewed like states?
Okay, sorry, Lizzie, can you ask that one more time?
Yeah. Would the compact be, a one-time registration, or would it be kind of a yearly thing that you have to do, or sign up to or renew?
So the
I don't know if
compact, to really participate in the compact, you have to have the multi-state license. So
Yeah.
an individual, you have your home state license and you meet the requirements of the compact, you can obtain the multi-state license. That multi-state license renewal period is tied to your home state license. So when you renew the home state license, you will in turn, work to renew that multi-state license. The commission may set additional fees for the renewal of that multi-state license. That's all to be determined by the commission, but the renewal cycles will be tied together with your home state license for your multi-state license.
Gotcha. Thank you, Grant. We got there. A little bit of a couple aspect question. Okay. So last question we'll get into is, or unless other questions come up, someone has a 2-state license. She is asking, would doing letters in both states help, or should I just choose one?
Doing letters in any and all states help. So absolutely. Your biggest audience right now is your own personal senator or representative. As we have bills out there, you saw that the Take Action page just had a very general letter of support. As we have specific bills in specific states, we will have specific letters of support for those bills, as well as maybe a generic letter, or not a generic, a specified letter you could send directly to the committee. So that, again, the tools in Voter Voice give us the ability to be able to communicate so much more effectively with our legislators. So to answer that question, you could do your personal letter through the Voter Voice system, and then you'd still need to either take that, copy and paste that language into another email, but feel free to send it to the states that you're practicing in as well. The more support that the legislators get, the more advocacy they hear from their base, the more they're going to be inclined to support and take action.
I think just the resounding these questions, which strikes me as a really positive, is people are wanting to get involved and to, you know, start that process. If either of you are looking at the chat, is there any questions that you saw that you wanted to discuss? If not, we'll probably start to wrap things up.
I was just doing a quick scroll because I didn't pay any attention. So I know that Chandra, it looks like, asked about the cost of, like, right now it's already $200 to renew her license, and then the multi-state license fee would be on top of that. And yes, that's true. And for individuals who are working fluidly across state lines, that fee is nominal compared to the benefits that they gain from being able to do that. So again, it doesn't change the current licensing process. So you're not required to apply for that multi-state license unless it's a tool that you feel makes personal and financial sense for you. And so, and then, as I mentioned, generally between the cost of 1 and 2 additional state licenses is where we would expect the cost of that to land. So again, we don't have those specific details. It is a process to get there, but we got to get this part done first so we can move on to the next part. And then, like you've also heard, you know, for those of us who've been around for a long time, we want it tomorrow. Like, I would love nothing more than to hop in an RV and travel this country, working 3 months here and 6 months there, and visiting all the places I've never seen in my lifetime. But as much as I would love to have that today, I want to make sure that someone else has that ability in the future, that we aren't in a position where state lines inhibit us from being able to go to work or practice when we need to. So remember that yes, it's about us, but it's more about the future and the progress of this profession, and having that mobility as we move forward. So I really appreciate the time everybody gave us today. Grant?
And if I could, I'm sorry, I just want to touch one thing on that fee question. With, you know, like you said, Patty, the cost of that fee is going to, you know, it really it is much more cheaper, much more affordable than maintaining licensure in multiple states, as well as the fact that the multi-state license is not going to have any impact on your regular licensure cost, right? It's just, if you want to have that option to maintain the multi-state license, you can choose to do so. But this will have no impact on anything to do with your single state, home state license.
Right. Not at all.
Amazing.
Well, Lizzie, I made it all the way through without my cold showing up until just
I know. I saw you were coughing. We're all getting sick. Take your vitamins. Okay. So thank you both so much for being here. This was a pleasure and so much great information. Again, to everyone, the recording will be sent out with all of these links, you know, the survey links, all that. Start to get involved. This process it's now, but it's for the future. And as Kirby said earlier, 5 more in 25, hashtag 5 more in 25. Thank you everyone for being here. And with that, we will see you guys at the next one. All righty. Bye-bye.